Salman Al-Farisi was born in the village of Jian in the Isfahan region of Iran, between the cities of Tehran and Shiraz. After Salman heard of the resurrection of Prophet Muhammad, he immediately left Persia to meet the Prophet and declare his Islam. In one story, Salman recounted his life story as follows. I was a young Persian boy from the village of Jian in the city of Isfahan. My father was the head of the village and the richest and most respected man in the village. From birth, I was the one that my father loved the most, and his love grew stronger with me, so I was confined to the house like a trapped goal. I was a devout believer in the Magi religion and felt responsible for lighting the fire we worshipped. It had to be kept burning all day and night. My father had a large farm that provided us with a good living. My father always managed it himself. One day, my father couldn't go to the field and asked me to take care of it. On my way to the farm, I passed a Christian church and heard the sound of people worshiping inside. It made me curious because I knew nothing about Christianity and other religions. I went in to see what they were doing. After paying attention, I was intrigued by the way they worshipped and also by their religion. I said to myself, surely the religion is better than ours. I didn't come out of the church until sunset and couldn't go to the fields. I asked them, where did this religion come from? They replied, from the Levant. After dusk, I returned home. My father immediately asked me what I had done. I replied, hi Dad, I passed a group of people worshipping in a church, and I was captivated by the way they worshipped. I stayed with them until the sun went down. My father was angry at my answer and said, my son, the religion is bad. The religion of our ancestor is better than that. I replied, no father, their religion is better than ours. My words made my father worried that I would leave our religion, and he imprisoned me at home. When the opportunity arose, I sent a message to the Christians and asked them to let me know if there was a group going to the Levant. A short while later, they informed me that a group was going to the country. I managed to free myself and join the group. When I arrived in the Levant, I asked who the leading Christian was. They replied, the bishop of the church. I went to the bishop and said, I'm interested in Christianity and would like to follow, help, and learn from you and worship together. The bishop replied, please come in. I went in and became his assistant. It wasn't long before I realized that the bishop was a weak man who asked his followers to give to charity with the promise of great rewards. After they gave the money, it turned out that the bishop was taking advantages from himself and not giving a penny to the poor. He managed to collect 7 bags of gold. Seeing that, I hated him very much. When he died, the Christian community gathered to give him a funeral. At the time, I spoke to them and said, surely this friend of yours is a bad person. He asked you to give alms and give promises of great rewards, but after you had collected the money, he himself took it without giving a penny to the poor. They asked, how do you know? I replied, now let me show you where his wealth is kept. They said, show it to us. I showed them the place and they found 7 bags of gold and silver. After seeing it in person, they said, by Allah, we will not give him a funeral. We must crucify him and stone him. Then they chose another person to take his place, and I went along. I have never found anyone more zuhud and expectant of the hereafter than him. His constant worship made me like him, so I stayed with him for a few years. At the time of his death, I asked him, O Fulan, to whom did you order me, and with whom should I live after you are gone? He replied, "Yes, my son. I honestly do not see anyone who is as religious as we are, except for one man in the city of Mosul named Ammar. He's not capricious and doesn't change the verses of Allah. Therefore, look for that person." After my friend died, I went to see him in the town of Mosul. When I arrived at his house, I told him my story and said, "When Fulan was about to die, he asked me to follow you. He told me that you were very strong in adhering to the truth. He said to me, 'Then stay with me.' Eventually, I stayed with him and found him to be a really good person. However, not long afterward, he experienced death. When he was about to die, I asked him, 'Ammar, God is close to you. You know my true condition. Therefore, who do you order me to be, and who should I follow?' He replied, 'Oh my son, honestly, I don't see anyone who is like except a man in Nasibin named Polan. Go there and join him.' After he was buried, I went to Nasibin to look for that person. I told him my story and my friend's previous message. He said, 'Stay with me.' Finally, I stayed with him, and it turned out that he was really a good person like my previous two friends. However, not long after, he also experienced death. When he was about to die, I asked him, 'You already know my true condition. Therefore, who do you order from me?' He replied, 'Oh my son, honestly, I have found no one of our religion except a man in the city of Amuria named Ubaid. Look for him.' So I sought him out and told him my story. He said, 'Stay with me.' Finally, I stayed with him, and it turned out he really was a good a man as anyone had said. During my stay with him, I managed to acquire some coals and other wealth. Later, he too experienced death like those before him. When he was about to die, I asked him, 'You know my true condition. Therefore, whom would you recommend for me, or what is your message for me?' He said, 'My son, honestly, I have not found anyone who is still faithful to our religion. However, the time is coming when a prophet will appear in the land of Arabia and bring the religion of Prophet Abraham. He will move from his native land to an area full of date palms between two hills. He will have a very clear sign of prophethood, and he will be reluctant to accept alms, although he will accept gifts. Between his shoulders is a prophetic mark. If you can find it, please go to that country.' Sometime later, he died, and I stayed in the city of Amuria. When a group of merchants from Arab cult tribe passed through the city of Amuria, I said to them, 'If you are willing to take me to the land of Arabia, I will give you my goods and my wealth.' They replied, 'Yes, we can take you.' I then gave them my coat and property, and they took me. However, when I arrived Wadi al-Qura, they played a trick on me and sold me to a Jew as a slave. One day, my brother from the Quraiza tribe came to meet me. They bought me and took me to Yathrib, Medina. There, I saw the date palm tree that my friend had told me about in Amuria. From my friend's description, I knew that this was the city in question. I stayed with my employer in that city. At the time, the Prophet had begun to invite the people of Makkah to convert to Islam. But I didn't know about the Prophet's activities because I was busy as a slave. At some point, the Prophet migrated to Yathrib. I was asleep at the time, cleaning up my master dates under the date tree. Suddenly, my master brother came and told him that there was a great threat to the descendants of Kila, as they were gathering in Kuba to await the arrival of a self-proclaimed prophet. After hearing that, I got goosebumps and trembled so much that I feared I may fall from the tree. I came down and asked the guest to repeat himself. My employer got angry and hit me and told me to go back to work. In the afternoon, I brought the few dates I had collected earlier to the Prophet's residence. I said to the Prophet that I heard that he was a pious man, and I wanted to give him some charity. Then I gave the date to them. But the Prophet did not eat them. I returned home and brought some dates. When the Prophet departed from Kuba to Medina, I came to see him and gave him the dates as a gift. The Prophet ate them and told the companions to eat them together. In my heart, I said, "This is the second sign of prophethood." When the Prophet was in Bargi Gargat, wanting to bury a companion, I came to him and saw him sitting wearing two shawls. I greeted him and walked around to look behind him, hoping to see the sign as told by the friend in Amuria. After the Prophet learned of my purpose, he lifted his shawl, and I saw the sign that made me certain that it was the sign of prophethood. I hugged and kissed him while crying. The Prophet asked, "What happened to you?" I told him my story, and he was very impressed and asked me to tell it to my companions. They were all amazed and overjoyed. Salman later converted to Islam and was released, becoming a very noble companion. He served as a governor during the time of the Khulafa Rashidin in several countries. May Allah bless Salman.